Common Sense Soapbox with Seamus Coughlin. Okay.
This is Susan. She and
Is this the Freedom Tunes guy?
her husband both work full-time to support their 3 children. But even with their dual incomes, they're finding it more and more difficult to afford health insurance.
Okay.
How could one visit be this expensive?
Okay.
Wait until you see how much your husband's resuscitation is going to cost.
Incidences like this, combined with their anxiety over rising premiums, is turning their American dream into sleepless nights. Why can't Susan and her family catch a break? It wasn't always this way. The healthcare spending crisis didn't start until the mid-1960s, around the same time when Medicare and Medicaid were signed into law. And also at the same time that we began requiring doctors to go through all sorts of expensive licensing procedures beyond medical school. Why? Well...
Oh no, I can already see the arguments that are going to be made. Okay, so hold on. So here's a chart they're not going to include. I don't have all this in front of me, but I know for a fact this is the case, okay? So here's the line of medical expenses, okay? First of all, interesting that they would have this one line for medical expenses and wouldn't distinguish between government spending for Medicare and Medicaid versus private spending, considering the fact that the person in the initial cartoon they showed was definitely talking about private spending. It's really weird that we're roping this in with government expenses. Additionally, this red line could also be used to describe the average life expectancy of elderly and poor people. Prior to the implementation of Medicare and Medicaid, poor people and old people died a lot because they had essentially no guarantees for medical protection. They had like really high rates of medical problems and nothing was done about it. In fact, the growth of the modern welfare state can be directly tracked onto a chart of the well-being of the average elderly person, which is interesting. We don't tend to think about the well-being of the elderly being a civilizational concern, but I think it'd be nice if people didn't basically just go to hell after 60. I think that'd be pretty cool. Life expectancy has also increased enormously, and also, yeah, like this red line without distinguishing between public and private spending is almost meaningless. Like it doesn't mean anything. Then this video goes on to talk about additional medical expenses doctors have to go through. Interestingly vague, isn't it? Let's listen to it again.
Medicare and Medicaid were signed into law, and also at the same time that we began requiring doctors to go through all sorts of expensive licensing procedures beyond medical school.
What expensive licensing procedures? Also, do you have any evidence that licensing procedures could meaningfully contribute to the trillions of dollars that we have spent on healthcare? Like, I don't, like, how, like, is there any evidence of this? Dude, libertarians love to do this shit. They'll be like, all these big business regulations have really led to these negative outcomes. And then you realize all the negative outcomes are caused by a different factor, and like the business regulations did like nothing, you know? That's why there are so many conservatives who are saying that the main problem we're having right now economically is that lockdowns are preventing people from opening their businesses. Like, no, motherfucker. Even in places where there aren't lockdowns, small businesses are still suffering because nobody's going outside because of the fucking pandemic. You can look that up, by the way. Even in areas where there's no lockdown, small businesses are still suffering. So the issue isn't the lockdown. The issue is the pandemic. But they'll blame the lockdowns. Wait, hold on. Vosh, they're not talking about Medicaid. They're talking about Medi-Aid? What? Did they just misspell it? Wait, did they actually misspell it in this video? Okay. Oh yeah, sorry. We're talking about Medi-Aid and Medicare. My bad. Okay, let's move on. So far, I haven't heard a compelling argument.
Medical school. Why? Well, there's a few reasons. Everyone wants healthcare, but there's only so much to go around, and short supply leads to high prices. Normally what happens in a marketplace is that when prices are high, entrepreneurs...
Wait. Suggesting the reason why healthcare costs have increased is because of the supply-demand curve? That's a contributing factor, but that is by no means, like, the thrust of the issue here. there are areas in America, there are parts of America where like hospitals are empty most of the time and the medical care is still really expensive over there. This is not a supply-demand issue. If it was a supply-demand issue, by the way, then you guys would be able to go into the hospital at 3 a.m. and get a lower cost for your medical procedure because it's way more likely that the hospital is empty during that time. That's not how it works, though, is it? No. Instead, it's ubiquitously high, regardless of time, regardless of area, regardless of population. Supply and demand is not like the explanatory factor here.
Entrepreneurs try to profit by finding more affordable ways to provide these goods and services. The more people become involved in providing these services, the less scarce they become, and the lower the prices drop, so that over time, more and more people can afford them.
Okay, so this is just a fundamental misunderstanding. I hate to say it, folks. This is capitalist propaganda. The idea that more and more competition universally drives down prices is just not the case. This is like a third grader's understanding of how economics works, especially since insurance. So first of all, they're talking about medical services here, but the problem in America isn't the medical services. It's mostly the insurance companies. If we're talking about medical services, then why is it that we see so much uniform expense being thrown around, regardless of what part of the country we're in, regardless of how many hospitals there are available? I probably live within like a half mile of a dozen hospitals. Like, it doesn't seem to be having that much of an effect on the cost of services. Additionally, insurance companies don't work like this because insurance companies don't provide a product. They provide a service, but the service they provide tends to be tied to employment, which means that, oh God, this gets so complicated, but the idea that it works like this is just really juvenile.
This is what happened to televisions, microwaves, computers, cell phones, internet service, delivery services, food, shipping, transportation, air travel, entertainment, home security, fitness, yoga, massages, veterinarian service.
Wait, this isn't true. Wait, okay, hold on. Some of these things this is the case for, but many of them they're not.
This is what happened to
This is what's called a gish gala, my friends. Guys, televisions didn't get less expensive because more companies started making televisions and they all dropped their television prices. They got less expensive because engineers found cheaper ways to produce them. New technology. Generally speaking, new tech becomes less expensive when A, more technology is invented to make its production cheaper, and B, the tools necessary to produce that technology become more ubiquitous. Right now, for example, you know, one of the reasons why televisions are so ubiquitous and commonplace is because basically it's very easy to find a factory that can manufacture the electronic parts necessary to produce it. Back when televisions were first invented, that was not the case. It was probably just a couple of specialty factories. So yeah, this was not a matter of more companies driving down prices, at least not necessarily.
Televisions, microwaves,
same argument can be made with microwaves.
Computers,
same with computers and cell phones.
Internet service,
Internet service in America is incredibly expensive with incredibly poor outcomes because it's a monopolized service. If you ever want to use ISPs in favor of free market enterprise, you are fucking lost, my friend. You are deluded. If American internet service companies are your fucking threshold for functional market engagement. Okay, dude. Mail services. Most mail service in America is done by the post office, which is the government.
Delivery services, food,
food? Most of the reason why food prices went down is because GMO and because of the road infrastructure we developed to make it cheaper to drive these goods from town to town. And farm subsidies, yeah.
Shipping, transportation.
Transportation has arguably gotten more expensive in some ways.
Air travel,
same with air travel relative to the actual cost of plane tickets has gone down massively. Relative to the number of people going, has it been proportional? Actually, generally speaking, flight services like Delta and stuff, they run on very, very thin margins. I feel the airline industry is very complicated. Air travel is definitely cheaper now, but stuff like trains and buses, it can vary heavily depending on the region.
Entertainment, home security, fitness, yoga.
I don't know what he means by home security. I don't know how home security prices have changed. Yoga, I don't know.
Massages, veterinarian services, and even all the medical technology like LASIK that isn't as heavily regulated or controlled by government.
Wait. Okay. LASIK got cheaper because the technology behind LASIK was better developed. He's trying to attribute lack of regulation and market forces to every beneficial economic development in this country, which is fucking ridiculous. Also, I would like LASIK to be regulated more. I think there are some potential negative consequences. Hold on. Certain side effects of LASIK eye. Hold on. LASIK, let's take a look, actually. Regulation. That's how you type. In the US, FDA regulates the sales of medical devices such as the lasers used for LASIK. Wait, what? Conductor provider rating system in any medical device it regulates. I don't know. I mean, it regulates the sale of the lasers. I guess that's fine. I don't know the specifics of LASIK surgery. I don't know it enough, at least, to directly argue against the assertion that the free market and a lack of government regulation made LASIK so cheap. I just don't think that's the case. I don't know.
What do I have that the common man doesn't? This beautiful television set and this microwave and refrigerator.
Sorry, but everyone can afford those now.
Oh, curse you, entrepreneurs! You never see—
That's not because of entrepreneurs. It's because of fucking technicians. Wait, what? This is so cringe. He's trying to attribute to free market enterprise what industrialization did. The same thing happened in the Soviet Union. Guys, the Soviet Union's economy never took off the way America's did, but even in the Soviet Union, without these same economic forces, the same thing happened. Technologies like radios and televisions and medical innovations became more and more ubiquitously used. I'm not defending the Soviet Union. I'm just saying that the reason that happened isn't because multiple firms competed to lower prices. It's because of industrialization.
to allow the common man to catch up to me, but at least they'll never be able to talk on the phone while in a car.
Guys, everyone laugh. Laugh at them trying to use capitalism as a savior from the bourgeois autocracy we're supposed to hate here. Oh yeah, dude. That's it. Thank you, capitalism, for saving us from uber wealthy, out of touch people running our lives. Thank you, free market forces, for rescuing us from this glimpse into an alternate world where sociopathic oligopoly fucking moguls control everything. Thank you, free market. You've done it. You've saved us again.
Okay, so I see what you're saying about the market driving prices down, but who says government can't?
Well, let me explain.
I just want to point out that in this video about where it began with a guy being saddled with like really high healthcare prices, we haven't talked about insurance yet.
What happened with Medicare and Medicaid as an example. In 1965, these two single-payer health insurance programs were instituted in the U.S. These programs made the unfortunate less dependent on impartial private charities and more dependent on political institutions and pharmaceutical companies. On top—
Whoa. Hold on. First of all, that's not what single payer means. Secondly, Medicaid and Medicare didn't make people more dependent on pharmaceutical wait, hold on. First of all, charity was not providing for the healthcare needs of tens of millions of Americans beforehand, okay? This is like, oh yeah, dude, the government involved themselves. Before, the charities were taking on tens of millions of people and providing them comprehensive healthcare, but then big government stepped in and forced them to be beholden to the pharmaceutical industry. What the fuck are you talking about? It gave poor and old people a shot at cheaper healthcare, okay? They had no healthcare. And charities don't provide health care. It was kind of hospitals were charities before the mid-20th century. No, when they're saying charity, what they're talking about is that these tens of millions of people were having their well-being paid for by charitable donations. How do you think that would even function? It used to be legal to turn people away from the ER if they didn't have the ability to pay for it. I'm pretty sure that change was made in the 90s. So prior to that point, like, oh yeah, GoFundMe. Yeah, we're going back to the charity model.
On top of that, these programs consistently require tax increases, and because they function more to satisfy the healthcare industry than the worker, they continually lead to more expensive and wasteful ways of treating patients.
So, what if we did something about the overcharging from the healthcare industry? Oh no, we have to pay tax money so tens of millions of people can have dignified existences. Oh yeah, Medi-Aid again. And Obamacare. What? So the myth that's being pushed here is that the implementation of these programs like devastated our national budget. When, by the way, if we really want to talk about expenses, Social Security is the big one. We can actually look, hold on. America, public versus private healthcare spending. In 2016, the U.S. spent about 8.5% of its GDP on health out of public funds. Hold on. However, private spending in the U.S. is much higher than any comparable country. Here we go. Here's the stats that libertarians don't actually want you to look at, okay? So, right here, U.S. public spending for healthcare is about on par to what this chart describes as comparable countries. I'm going to imagine this means like, you know, liberal democracies in the first world. However, our private spending is even higher than that. Our private spending is like 3 to 4 times as high as comparable countries' average private spending. So sure, taxes did go up in order to accommodate the expenses associated with Medicare and Medicaid, but you were already paying a fuck ton because of private spending. And by the way, guys, here's something they don't want you to look at. Why is it that public and private spending for healthcare in the US follow the same line up, even though only public spending should be affected by stuff like Medicare and Medicaid? I thought the narrative was that the only reason this shit was getting more expensive was because of government expenses increasing, but non-government expenses seem to be increasing at the same rate. It's almost as though there's an underlying problem with the way our healthcare and health insurance pricing works that's causing some shared increase in expenses. And on top of that, comparable countries, in spite of spending the same amount as us for public spending and far less than us for private spending, get better healthcare outcomes per capita. I wonder why. Now, a real advocate for capitalism, somebody who read like Adam Smith, for example, would know one of the big reasons why healthcare turned out this way is because there is no inherent, price elasticity when it comes to pricing out healthcare. I've made this argument before, but the market economy functions best when people can make informed decisions about whether or not they want a commodity. Guys, would you buy a candy bar for $0.25? I'm waiting on that answer. I want to see. Yeah. Would you buy a candy bar for $500? I know these are rhetorical questions, but I like seeing the answers roll by. Fine. Now, how much would insulin have to cost before you decided you would rather just die? Yeah. Okay, well, the joke is that you all want to die anyway, but the point is, when it comes to stuff that is essential and does not have a tremendous amount of volatility or flexibility to its price and demand, like healthcare, you don't get to make good market arguments for it. The market economy just doesn't function with stuff like that. How do you put a price on somebody's life? To the person whose life is on the line, I mean, they'll pay anything. What about their kid's life? The market economy doesn't function. Earlier, this guy was saying, healthcare prices went down because more hospitals opened. That's not what's happened. What incentive is there for hospitals to lower their prices when everything's handled by insurance companies anyway? And even if it weren't handled by insurance companies, the fact yet remains they could all charge $1,000 for the most minor procedures and you fuckers would still have to do it. You're still going to go to a hospital. A mom's still going to take her kid to the hospital if he breaks his arm and it costs $10,000. Parents will drive themselves into lifelong debt so their kids can live a couple years longer. People aren't able to decide to walk away from healthcare. It can't happen. So market forces don't work properly here. The supply-demand curve doesn't work properly here. The supply-demand curve's a fucking vertical line. Or horizontal line. I forget which one it would. I guess it could be either, depending on how you align the axes. It just doesn't work.
As a result, prices continually rise, making it more difficult for people like Susan and her family to afford health insurance. Not only that, but in 1965, the government also took over the training of new doctors, and in 1997, they limited the number of new doctors they would train at 110,000 per year.
I don't know any of this, but I have never heard that healthcare prices have risen because there aren't enough doctors. I know we need more nurses. I haven't heard that, like, a lack of doctors is necessarily strangling us. Maybe that could be the case. There are plenty of bad laws that are passed by the government. Also, wait, 110,000 a year? That's a lot of people.
110,000 per year would train at a training of new doctors, and in 1997 they limited the number of new doctors they would train at 110,000 per year.
Hold on. Doctor. Limitations? I don't know. How about 110,000 limitation? I saw that. Residency cap limits the supply of physicians on the verge of a devastating doctor shortage, but avoidable. Okay, so maybe this is a big problem. I mean, that's fine. The government can push bad policies, but this isn't an argument against healthcare. Huh, interesting. Yeah, well, it could well be the case that that is an issue.
And the number hasn't changed since. Even worse, our government won't let migrant doctors from developed Western countries practice in the US without undergoing this training. As a result, experienced doctors from other countries are less likely to want to practice medicine in the US. This contributes to the scarcity of doctors, making healthcare even more expensive.
I mean, if that's true, I think that's an issue. I don't know the specifics, but yeah.
Well, I see that those programs didn't work as intended, but I'm sure Obamacare will. Won't that solve the problem?
Don't strawman me, motherfucker. No lefty thought Obamacare would fix a goddamn thing.
Unfortunately, Obamacare suffers from similar problems. It eliminated the pricing structure by seriously restricting competition because all providers have to offer the same kinds of plans at the same price. And because the price isn't really determined by the market, providers can charge the taxpayer way more than they could have otherwise. It's basically just a handout to the big insurance companies.
That's not entirely inaccurate. There's some... don't catch me defending Obamacare. Listen, everything you've seen in this video, none of it is an argument against the expansion of Medicare, okay? Or Medicaid or whatever the fuck, okay? And also, market forces did not drive down the cost of medical expenses in the United States, okay? Obamacare may be shit. There's a lot of arguments in favor of and against Obamacare. There are a lot of problems with it, all right? I'm not defending that shit. I'm just saying this video does not succeed in its attempt to argue for fucking laissez-faire healthcare capitalism, which would devastate this country, and the attempts to implement those policies have so far been the reason why America's healthcare system is the laughingstock of every other comparable country. They laugh at us. When people in other countries hear that a fucking pregnancy can bankrupt a family of 4, or when they hear that mothers get 0 weeks of paid time off when they get pregnant, or when they hear that you can fucking, that you can literally, like, lose your insurance if they find out you have a pre-existing condition. Thank you, Obamacare, for getting rid of that issue, at least. They laugh at us. It's like a joke to them. Like, America is like this dystopic, hellish Mad Max nightmare universe world, you know? Where the only people who get good healthcare in America, the only people who get healthcare proportional to the money they invest in it, are the ultra wealthy. They get access to the absolute best, top of the line stuff. And they are the ones who pay people like this dipshit to make propaganda to try to convince people who make $40,000 a year that life would be better for them if we didn't implement objectively superior healthcare policies. They pay out and make fucking astroturfed YouTube accounts like Foundation for Economic Education, and they get animations done by fucking grifty little shit posters who make haha funny YouTube skits about how AOC looks funny because of her big lips or something like that. Anyway, this is dumb shit.